Hey, everybody. Taylor Hill with Spark Marketer here, and I have got my co founder, Carter Harkins, with us today. And we have brought in a ringer, Caroline Shepard, who is yeah, you got to figure out which way this goes, how that works. Caroline Shepard works for us, and she is the master of this 800-pound gorilla that we're going to be talking about today. And hopefully get it working for you. So, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad that you're here. You're going to keep Carter and I within the rails of what we are supposed to be talking about, which, guys, let me just say this to you. This today is not about my opinion. It's not going to be about what Carter thinks or what I think or even what Caroline thinks. We're going to talk about what Google wants and what Google thinks, because that's really what you need to do. You need to keep yourself in the rails with this big 800-pound gorilla and do what Google tells you to do so you can get it working for you. So, hey, Chuck and or Linda, I never know which one you are. Jillian, thank you so much for being here. That's awesome. So glad you're here. And we are going to jump right in. So, Caroline, tell us, what exactly is Google My Business?
Well, I guess to try to put it as simply as possible, Google My Business is a tool slash platform that Google has created for business owners that basically bridges the gap between you and your business and Google. So it allows business owners to be found on Google without consumers having to access your website. So they can find out a lot of information about you and your business while still within Google.
So they kind of want to keep you on Google, from what I understand, and that's what they
do
developed this for. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Is it true that this is primarily for local businesses?
Yes, yeah. So it's primarily for local businesses, physical businesses, but we'll get into that in a little bit, I'm sure.
It's great. So, Carter, you want to talk about kind of the map portion, part of Google My Business, how you kind of get found right there? I'm asking you this because I think you know the answer.
Yeah, well, it used to be the Google Maps product was a very separate thing, and but what Google has done is to marry some things up together so that now there's just one place that a business needs to be able to manage their presence online to like direct people to them. And this is for brick and mortar businesses that have a store location, but there's also some things with Google Maps that, and we'll be talking about this. I won't be talking about this, but Caroline hopefully can shed some light on some of the tricks for the service area businesses need to employ using Google My Business in order to get found. But yeah, so anytime that a business is found on the map, whether it's in a search result or whatever, it's Google My Business kind of behind the scenes there that's married up with the map so that people can find you more easily, but find richer information about your business on the map. Is that a fair way to say it, Caroline?
Yes, yeah, especially with the maps part. And one thing that I would add to that I didn't mention before is that Google My Business isn't just maps. You also see it with like knowledge panels and knowledge graphs. They're basically the same thing in the industry. We just kind of switch those terms around. But if ever you do like a branded search, which is just like your business name and like your location, a lot of the times you'll notice on like the right-hand side of the search results, you have your regular search results. And then off to the right-hand side, you'll have like a box that has your name, a couple of photos, hours, reviews. That is your Google My Business showing right there in the regular search results. But yes, everything in maps, that is your Google My Business.
And the question that I get a lot about Google My Business that I think is real interesting is, can I just rely on Google My Business? Do I really need a website? And the thing that's interesting about that is there are companies that don't have websites that get some business through Google My Business and can get enough business from that particular platform. What we find is service area companies are not those types of companies because people are looking for other things outside of just your location. Some of the ones that kind of do really well, hairstylists is one that I've read about, whether you're a barber or hairstylist, something like that, where people are looking for you and mainly they're trying to get a phone number and an address because they're trying to do something with you that way. So those kind of businesses can sometimes get away without a website. But the interesting thing is that Google My Business pulls a lot of information from your website. I mean, it is tied together. So they know who you are. They are definitely validating who you are by what you put on your website. So you need to make sure that the things on your website and your Google My Business, if you're going to fill out the Google My Business and optimize it the way it should, it needs to match up to your website. So, the better your website, really, the better your GMB is. And GMB is also Google My Business, just FYI. Sometimes I have people that ask me that question. So just want to make sure we get that in there. So it also feeds into Google search, so when you search for something, normally there are ads that come up at the very top. If you are an HVAC electrician, something like that, you've got the Google local ads. Then underneath that, you've got AdWords, which is the Google platform. Ads platform, and then under that normally you have your GMB, and then under that is when your organic starts. So you got to work through a whole lot of stuff to get to the organic. So Caroline, tell us a little bit about how you maneuver around it, because you really don't own it. So what do you do with it?
Yeah, so that's something that we get a lot of strife over, is the fact that Google provides this tool for businesses to use. It's completely free. But the caveat with that is that you don't own it. And there are problems that arise with that. Like, Google can suspend it if you, do too many edits too quickly. We'll get into that later. But basically what you want to do is you just want to fill it out and optimize it as much as you possibly can. So every little bit that Google gives you to do something with your Google My Business, you're going to want to take advantage of that. And it's going to be different depending on like what industry you're in. It can be different, even within, kind of the same kind of home service business type of industry. It can vary, but you're going to want to make sure that, you have your primary category. You want to fill out your hours, services. You're going to want to use the Google Post option. You're going to want to use pretty much, if you go into your Google Business listing and you see anything blank, you're going to want to fill it out. Just make sure you fill everything out, and that'll be a good start.
So that really leads us into this, the most important parts to focus on. If you've got limited time and you don't have time to sit and just fill the whole doggone thing out, what would you focus on? What are the things to focus on the platform?
First thing is going to be your primary category. This is going to be the number one thing that Google looks at to decide when to display your listing in the results. So if you are an electrician, make sure you have an electrician as your primary business category, not plumber or whatever. What else, I don't know why you would choose something else that isn't you, but this is the number one thing you want to make sure you have. You can also do secondary categories. Those are also very important and very helpful, but you want to make sure that that primary category is locked in there and ready to go. You're also going to want to fill out your hours, make sure those are correct. Make sure that if you change your hours seasonally, you're going to want to, update those as you change those as well. Photos, you're definitely going to want photos in there. High quality photos, relevant photos, photos of work that you do. That's going to be something that a lot of people really like to look at. So make sure that you have some of those in there as well. Website, obviously, should have put that towards the top, but yeah, you want to make sure you have your website listed in there as well. They do have a appointment link and just like a regular website link, so you're going to want to have both of those filled out. Obviously, the website link is going to be your homepage, and then the appointment link is going to be like your scheduling page. So those are probably the things that I would focus on first. Obviously, I can just keep going on.
No, I get that. Yeah. I think a lot of times, we deal with service area businesses, and it's different than a brick and mortar. And I think Google was really caught off guard when they developed Google My Business, because it was developed for brick and mortars. I mean, that's really what it was developed for, is people that have, offices, showrooms, restaurants, those kind of businesses. And then people with service area business kind of jumped on the bandwagon and did all these crazy things, to try to get seen and all this kind of stuff. So, that's one of the things that Google has struggled with, and they keep making different rules and I don't know, we'll say regulations, but I guess just rules and policies there. That's a much better word. They kind of mess things up from time to time. So you have to kind of stay on top of those policies. And then the other question I get a lot is, why isn't my company showing up on a map?
Yeah, there could be several different reasons for that. The biggest one is, I guess it depends on, if you're making like a specific search or if just in general. The biggest thing is going to be like, if you don't see a pin, then that's just going to be because your listing does not have your address listed. And that is a big problem with service area businesses. Google is very particular about listing your address when you're a service area business. Essentially, their rules, their policies on service area businesses are, if you, service someone at their home and they do not come to visit you for services, then you are not allowed to display your address. And if you do not display your address, you don't get a pin. You can line up a service area. I think they allow you 25 different locations. You can fill in cities or counties. You fill that out, and then they kind of give you like a little outline around your service area. But yeah, if you don't have an address listed, then you don't get the pin. So that would be why a pin is not showing up for your listing. Another reason, just generally speaking, if you don't show up, it could be that you're not close enough to your business when you're like initiating the search. So like if you're maybe out, at a customer's home performing a search or something like that, you're like 20, 30 minutes away from, where your business is located. Proximity is like the number one thing that Google My Business decides on when they're showing the 3-pack, which is like you were mentioning before in the organic results. So if you don't show up in that 3-pack, it's probably because you're not close to the location that you're searching for.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause a minute and just say, hey guys, for those of you that are on it, if you could give us a thumbs up. There's also supposed to be a bell or something that's there. I got a notification that there's like a little bell somewhere to ring the bell. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but if you see the bell, just give it a ring-a-ling-ding and see what happens. We'll all, if we explode, then we know we probably shouldn't have done that, but hopefully that won't happen. So we're just having fun today. It's all going to be good. Carter, tell us a little bit about some of the other things that you do on that particular GMB page with services, all the different things you fill out.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the content side.
Well, that's my point.
That's probably the thing that that's the biggest challenge in working with businesses, is a lack of photos, a lack of videos, things that we can post there in terms of content that makes that Google My Business profile really rich and something that a consumer who finds it would be able to find good information about. You see restaurants do it a lot, right? But restaurants have a lot of things that are great to take pictures of, like their courtyard and their beautiful, dining room and their patio and all of the different dishes and meals and things that they serve and pictures of people having a good time. Well, none of that really applies to a home services business. And so, it's a challenge to find good pictures that are, that present some kind of value to somebody who's seeing it. But things I love to see are before and after pictures. You can post those, especially when they're in conjunction with reviews. All of that information gets pulled in and becomes a really rich experience. Videos are great too, though. If you're proud of a job that you've done, do a quick video of it and show people what you're doing. Just human interest kinds of things. If it's a really cold, blizzardy, wintry day, a quick video of you sitting behind the wheel of your truck with the snow falling in the background and just saying, come hell or high water, rain or shine, snow or sun, we get the job done. We're out here to take care of our customers and make sure that, just things like that are proof to people that you take your work seriously and you provide excellent service. And it's a really good and rich experience when you add those things. So when you're creating content, don't just think of like the typical social media places like Twitter and Facebook or Instagram. Also think about putting those things on your Google My Business page too.
Yeah, perfect. And you touched on this a little bit before about don't edit too much. Can you expand on that a little bit, Caroline, and kind of tell us, what's the deal with editing your page?
Yeah, so Google has this algorithm set up to try to trap like fake listings or spam listings. But sometimes it gets a little trigger happy and there are like false positives. And usually what triggers those types of things is going into your Google My Business and making multiple edits at once. For some reason, we've seen problems with that. Google doesn't like that. So if you go in to like change your hours, but then you also want to like update your, appointment link. You don't want to do this at the same time. It's happened before where we've gotten flagged and we've gotten suspended. Suspensions are always temporary. You can get it turned around, but your business is gone basically while you're waiting for that to happen. So you don't want that to happen. So usually what we recommend is, go in, make one, hit save, hit refresh, give it a minute, then go back in, make the second edit, save it, and then, go about your day.
So this is what happens when you have a company that works for you, because we've pretty much made all these errors and kind of learned the hard way. Oh, there's a different way to do this. So that's always fun.
And this kind of goes back to the analogy of the gorilla, right? An 800-pound gorilla. Mm-hmm. You can do certain things to get that gorilla to cooperate with what you want it to do, but you don't own that gorilla. And you certainly aren't going to ever get that gorilla to do something it doesn't want to do. And you tick that gorilla off, you got problems, right? So, knowing how to approach this, to get this gorilla working for you and not mad at you is really kind of important. So these are some of the tricks that we've learned, but and it changes a lot too. And that's part of the reason that it's always a good idea to try to work with someone, that has the experience of knowing and staying current on what is working well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We also get a lot of questions of why am I not showing up in the 3-pack? So I want to talk a little bit about this real quick. I was on a webinar just recently with a big marketing outfit that works in HVAC and plumbing. And one of the issues that he talked about is proximity, which Caroline touched on this a little while ago. If you are not near the area that you serve, in other words, if your business isn't located somewhat near the area that you serve, you're not going to come up on those three, the top three. You're just not, because proximity is the number one way that Google actually shows that listing. So they went so far as to say they absolutely will not work with a company that does not have a legitimate Google office within the area that they serve. They will not do it. They've stopped working with companies altogether that does not have that just don't have an office in the area that is within the business location that they want to reach. And the reason that he said is there's so much competition in certain industries that there's no way that somebody outside can break into that. And more people are able to go to the Google My Business look really quickly, see the reviews, make a decision, especially if it's like plumbing, HVAC, home remediation, things that are emergency type services. They may not have time to do a lot of research. And so they're doing it so quickly that, to work with somebody that is trying to break in an area that does not have a legitimate business, it's almost impossible. So, Caroline, tell us a little bit more about what goes into that 3-pack, showing up on that 3-pack outside of, being in the area.
Sure. Yeah. So the area is definitely the number one thing. But to expand on that, other things that are really big factors that really matter, amount of reviews that you have, that's a big one. Your overall start rate, those two are kind of tied together. It also depends on the search that you're doing, like the keyword that you're using. I've seen it happen before where certain keywords that you have within your Google My Business, whether it's in a review that someone has left or a service that you have put in there, or even sometimes on posts that you leave, you will show up in the 3-pack, and underneath your name, it will say, we've chosen this result because it mentions this term that you just searched for. So terms that you're searching for, that can make an effect, which because of that, it's really important to just, like Carter was saying, build out the content, right? Like use all of your keywords, use all of your services, list all of those things all over your GMB, and that's going to help you show up for those types of searches. Again, services that you list. Yeah.
But don't put your keyword in the title of your business if it's not in your business.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. We'll get into that later. I could make like a whole thing on that, but yeah, don't do that. Only use your business name.
Yes.
Don't be a part of the problem.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yep. So, okay. Well, that's great. So here is, I've got to tell you, y'all don't know this, but Caroline is the map spam killer in our business. I'm telling you, there's something about having the ability to just go in and just totally wipe these people out that should not be there. And Caroline does a masterful job. And a lot of you guys, if y'all are clients of ours, and by the way, Chuck, Linda, whichever one you are, thank you for ringing the bell. I have no idea what it did. I didn't hear it, but I really wanted to tell you I appreciate you doing that. But the thing about map spam is a lot of times we see it before you do. And so Caroline and Aaron both work on this, and a lot of times they've gone in and addressed it and got rid of it before we even have people that mention it to us. But it's a little bit like whack-a-mole. So, they kill it and it comes back. I feel like it's like weeds. I went out in my yard today and saw all the dandelions and thought, well, didn't I kill those last year? Well, doggone, they came back this year. I'm going to have to do it again. So it's kind of like that. So tell us a little bit about map spam and what you look for and what people may need to see to identify it.
Sure. So there's lots of different types of spam that you see within maps. One of them is what we were just talking about. Keyword stuffing, or like name keyword stuffing, is when you see a business who has their name listed in the Google My Business, in the title, and then they have a bunch of keywords tacked on at the end. So like if you have like a plumber, right, and their name is like ABC Plumbing or something like that, it'll say like ABC Plumbing, Nashville, all these other services, like freezing pipe repair, leaky pipe repair, like, all of this stuff just listed out in the title. It's not even listed in their services, it's listed in the title, and it just looks completely ridiculous. So that's like keyword stuffing. You've also got address spam, which we see a lot of, mostly because of service area businesses. If you see someone who is using an address that is like obviously not their real address, I've seen it happen where businesses are like posted out of like a Taco Bell, or I saw one in a college once, like just using these really stupid, like obviously just not their real addresses to get closer to the center of the city, right? Because again, proximity matters, and so they're trying to spam the game to get closer. But that's another type of spam. Duplicates is another one that we see a lot of. As a service area business, you're only allowed to have one location, unless you actually physically have multiple locations that are staffed. But generally speaking, service area businesses are only allowed to have one listing. So what we see a lot of the time is we'll see, ABC Plumbing, and then ABC Plumbing again, and then ABC Plumbing with the name of like this one particular suburb area, but still within the same, big city. So those are all probably the most common types of spam that we see. Yeah.
Okay. So what about review spam? I know that's
Review
another thing that we've seen a lot of, and that used to not be there. I mean, we knew there was some reviews of employees and that kind of stuff, but this is kind of a whole new level right now.
Right. So reviews have kind of evolved. People are starting to like pay other people to leave reviews, and people now like sell reviews as a kind of thing to, make your business look good, right? Or make other businesses look bad. So there's, it's kind of two ways. Either you have fake reviews that are posted on businesses to make them look good. You can see sometimes like 10, 20 reviews pop up like overnight or over the course of a couple of days. Or you see negative reviews that people leave. Usually this happens to like clients, and they freak out because all of a sudden they've got like 5, 10 negative reviews from people that, they don't know. The easy way to recognize those is does that service sound familiar? Can you look up that person's name in your, database and see, did we service this person? Did we not service this? So yeah, those are going to be the biggest types of review spam. Another way to figure out if it's like, for those positive reviews, one way to figure out if those are like real or not is, what I like to do is you can click on the person who left that review, see other reviews that they have left. And if you see that they left like, 20 reviews in a bunch of different places across the country within like the same, like 2 or 3 days, it's like that, okay, that person probably didn't, travel around the country within 2 or 3 days reviewing all of these places. So that's a way to identify the different types of spam. Yeah.
So Caroline, once you identify it though, and this is the question about not only the review spam, but also back to the map spam as well. Yes. What do you do about it? I mean, right. I know we that's part of what we do for our clients, but like, what could somebody do if they discover this?
Sure. So the first thing you're going to want to do, I'll talk about map spam first. The first thing you're going to want to do is, when you're looking at a listing, if you scroll down just a little bit, it should be above the reviews. There's an option, there's like a little bubble button that says make an edit, or, request an edit. If you click on that, there is an option to say like, why are you making an edit today? And there should be an option for like spam, or this, doesn't exist here. If you click on that, it'll give you even more options, like why are you reporting it as spam? Why do you want to close it? If it's address spam, you can say, this doesn't exist here. If it's duplicates, then you can say this is a duplicate. If it's keyword stuffing, then you should be able to just edit the name of the listing. You don't even have to like close it. You can just edit the name. And then those edits will go under review. Depending on how many edits you've made in the past, this is going to be successful or not successful. I tend to get more edits accomplished because I've been doing it for a while, but for someone who hasn't done that many edits, it's less likely to get those edits to go through. But you're going to want to do that. And after you do that, you wait a couple days, then you're going to move on to, if nothing happens, if it doesn't go away, if the name doesn't change, if the edit doesn't go through, then you're going to move on to something called a redressal form, which is something that Google put together, I think maybe 2 years ago now. Time flies. But it was a couple years ago, they put together a form that you can submit to tell Google, hey, this listing is fake, it's spam, it doesn't belong here, please remove it. And there's information that you need to fill out. You have to put like your name, the business that's being impacted. You can put your business, or you can just kind of say like prefer not to answer if you are feeling kind of paranoid about that kind of thing. We typically don't, put anything in there. We say like NA, not applicable. But yeah, you fill it all out. Just fill the whole thing out. Don't leave anything blank. They give you a little paragraph section where you're going to want to explain why the listing is violating Google's guidelines. And this is the most important part. You have to explain why it's violating the guidelines, not why you don't want it to be there anymore and why it's bothering you. Google doesn't care about your feelings. It really sucks, but they don't. They only care about, what is lawful for Google, what is within their guidelines and what isn't. So brush up on your guidelines. I like to quote like the exact part of the guidelines that they're violating and say, this is what they're violating. This is how they're doing it. Please remove them. So you do that, and then you wait a couple weeks to hear back from Google. And in fact, they don't typically tell you whether or not they've accepted it or not. You just kind of send it off and just wait to see. You get one email that says that they received it, but then in that email it says, we won't be contacting you about this further. So then it's up to you to follow up. So you just keep an eye on that listing. You just check it, every couple of days. And then the turnaround time right now is about 2 weeks. It changes depending on lots of different factors, but right now it's about 2 weeks. So you wait 2 weeks. If nothing happens, you just resubmit it again. And it's a long process. It's a frustrating process. It's a painful process. But that's the best process that Google has right now. Yeah.
So, oh yeah, it's worth doing because if you can clean all the map listings that are above that are bad, it jumps all the legitimate people up. I mean, it's absolutely worth listening, doing. But I just want you guys that are out there, if you appreciate the fact that this is done for you, whether you work for us or another company that does it for you, man, just put that in the comments. Thank Caroline and Aaron, because I guarantee you, y'all have no idea how many hours and hours they spend on this stuff to keep that clean so that you guys come up in the GMB. And I know that the other companies that do this too are very, very busy, and because we've talked about that. Tell us a little bit, if you spot the review spam, what to do.
Right. So review spam is a little bit harder. Google doesn't offer nearly as much support for review spam as they do actual listings. But you do have the option to flag the review. That's a good place to start. When you're looking at the review on a computer or a phone, there should be like 3 dots next to the review. If you click on that, it gives you the option to flag it. I think you can also, if you suspect a particular like user of committing like lots of review spam, you can also tag and flag that user, but you can only do that on mobile phone. You can't do that on desktop right now. This is something that came out, again, time flies, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago. But Google is constantly like, refining the process and doing these types of things. So it will probably eventually become available on desktop, but right now you can only do it on mobile. But you do the same thing. You look at the review, you click on the username, and then there should be an option to flag that particular user. And once you flag it, you give it a couple days. Usually Google doesn't do anything about it. But then you contact Google support. And I wouldn't say contact Google support. They have a forum that you can go to. The forum is not manned by Google employees. It's manned by SEO experts that volunteer their time. So be nice because they're volunteers. But just bring your situation to them, leave it in the forum, and usually someone will get back to you, and they are able to actually escalate things within the the Google employee pool there. So that's how I would recommend working with the review spam. But again, it's really hard to get rid of review spam because they're only going to get rid of it if it violates guidelines. So if you have someone who's just being like disgruntled and they're not violating any of those guidelines, it's likely that the review is going to stay up, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Kathy Ray knows how hard you work. She says, thank you. And thank you,
Hi,
Kathy, for
Kathy.
putting that up. Appreciate that. So, Carter, I want you to take this one because you really have worked on the website side of things. Give us the pros and cons because a lot of people are starting to see that there's this website in GMB and they're wondering, do I fill it out? Do I not fill it out? What do I do? Does it take the place of what I got? So can you address that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And Caroline, I just want to give you a heads up. This isn't in our notes for discussing today, but I wanted to ask you this after we talk about this, because there's another feature that's a part of GMB2, which is the messenger part.
Yeah.
And that's something we weren't really planning on talking about today, but it is kind of a current topic within GMB and stuff. There's things happening there. So I just wanted to prep you a little bit to be thinking about it. Come back around to it.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, you bet. So as far as Google My Business websites, there is the ability to launch a small website that describes your services, and it can stand in if you don't have a website already. It can stand in as a website where people can learn more about your products and your services and contact you to work with you. It's something that, as a web designer, I'm kind of like, yeah, doesn't look all that great. It's not all that wonderful as a tool, and you don't own it. So those are all reasons, like for me, that I would say it's probably not something you want to do. But here's the one thing that we get asked a lot about, which is, well, I already have a website, but should I also build a Google My Business website too? Like, is there any advantage to having both? And I would say, and Caroline, I'll defer to you here, but I would say no. If you already have a website, that's the primary website. That's the center of your universe. Mm-hmm. That's where you want to drive traffic. That's where you want people to come to for a lot of different reasons. But, and Caroline, I'll just ask you to clarify this, but there's actually a good reason just from optimization standpoint not to have both, right? Like you could actually confuse Google about what you're trying to do and drive traffic away from the places you really want them to go,
right?
And get things messed up. Is that fair?
Yes, yeah, because when you create that Google My Business website, it actually competes with your actual website in ranking, which some people would be like, oh, I have 2 results in the search results. Like, that's good, right? Well, the thing about the Google My Business website is that it's literally just the information that you create in your Google My Business listing, and they just rearrange it and make it look all pretty on this website. But there's, it's just that information that's in your Google My Business. So if you already have a built out Google My Business, and you already have a website, there's no need to just put that information in another format. Again, you're going to confuse people that are trying to find your website. And again, if you have a really well-built website, you've got lots of other really good information there that you want people to go see, right? You've got blogs that answer questions. You've got, all this other information that's on your website that you want people to see that is not going to be on that Google My Business website because it's literally just the information that's already in your Google My Business. So if you have a really good website, just stick with the website that you already have. I wouldn't go for the Google My Business website unless you don't have one. You don't have a regular website.
Yeah. And even then, would you say that, you're a brand new company? Let's just address it from like a scenario here. You're a brand new company, just getting started. You can't afford, a marketing company to build a website for you, but you can sit down with Google My Business over a weekend and get it all filled out and everything else and turn on the GMB website version. Could you then later, use that for a little while because you're getting some value from it, but then later turn that off in order to launch your main website, that's been built for you and optimized and everything else? Is that possible?
That's actually a really good question. Since we don't really work with the GMB websites, I don't know that answer off the top of my head, but I can look it up and I can let you guys know. Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? When you don't know, admit it and find out. I think That's great. So we'll find out and post it in Spark Marketer Facebook later on. Let's figure out if we can do that. So let's get into the Facebook Messenger conversation. I didn't know if we were going to bring that up or not. So do what?
Google Messenger.
Oh, I said Facebook, didn't I? Sorry.
We were talking about Facebook.
No, I don't want to talk about Facebook. We're gonna have to bring another guest in to talk about it. But the GMB Messenger. Let's talk a little about this, because there's been some really excitement around it, and then there's also been some pullback. So talk a little bit about that. What's going on there?
Sure. So Facebook Messenger, not Facebook Messenger. Google Messenger, the messenger option on your Google My Business listing. It's been getting a lot of talk lately for particular reasons, but basically what it is, it allows you as the business to connect to, potential customers that are looking at your business on Google without them visiting your website again, because Google wants everyone to stay within Google. Google doesn't want people to go visit other places, so they want to make it as easy as possible for the consumer to, reach out to you while still staying in Google. So it's just like, it's kind of like texting. You don't text it, it's not actual texting through like a messaging app. It's all done through Google My Business. So number one, if you do want to do this, if you decide to do this, you have to have Google My Business downloaded as the app on your phone. That's step number one. And you have to be able to respond quickly. That's like the number one thing that people like misinterpret about it, is that it's not like sending a form. It's like texting. And if people, want to do a quick messaging, if you don't respond within a minute or two, they're just going to move on to the next person, right? Because people want things fast.
Not only that, but Google is, the moment that it gets that a question gets submitted by a consumer on Google Messenger, the clock starts ticking. I mean, Google's got a timer going, and they're measuring to see how fast you're going to respond. And that becomes part of an algorithm that determines like whether they should be showing your Google My Business page to people looking for your services. So just be aware, if
that's a really good point.
Cannot respond quickly, you need to think very seriously about enabling it.
Yes, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. One other thing that it's kind of catching flack for and making people think like second guess is that if you send a message, so like the consumer, I'm looking for a service, right? I go to Google, I search the service, I see a listing that I like, they've got good reviews, they've got lots of photos. I decide I want to like message them and like ask for a quote for some service. After I send that message, it brings up my other competitors of that business, and it asks me, the consumer, if I also want to send that same message, that same quote to those other businesses. So this is the kind of like double-edged sword here. So it does give you a way to quickly interact with potential, customers, but it also makes it easier for that potential customer to then reach out to other businesses. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Yeah.
That's fairly new. That's why the hubbub and all the talk flying around in the channels and the places where we spend all of our time staying on the cutting edge of things. And I've seen a lot of that conversation going around. I gotta say, just in case Google's listening, it confuses the heck out of me why they would make a decision like that when they want, what their goal with Google My Business is, to give businesses a place to provide accurate information and manage their profile online so that people will stay within the Google experience instead of leaving it. Why they would create a situation that invites, I mean, literally, if I turn that on, what I'm doing is telling Google, yes, I want you to present my two biggest competitors right alongside my information, so that now I've created a situation where instead of having an opportunity to connect with a consumer who needs my services, I've created an opportunity for my consumer to compare me to two other people. It makes no sense at all. I mean, from a business logic standpoint, maybe there's some, something there that Google sees as being like in its best interest, but I will just say it is not in the best interest. In my opinion, it It is not in the best interest of a business to invite that sort of competitive pressure, in having conversations with clients. I would much rather try to get them to my website where I control the conversation, where I can do that on my terms and connect with a customer and convince them that we're the right service for them, rather than using, Google to. It doesn't make sense to me. That's my opinion.
Well, it's the same thing that's been happening for years. Google giveth and Google taketh away.
Yep.
It seems to be the Google way of things. And hey, Lee, thanks for checking us out, man. So glad you're here. He just popped in and said hello. One of the things I'll tell you about Google, I mean, I've been doing this for, almost 20 years now. And the thing that I know is that Google does not really take in consideration of the decisions they make, how it actually affects the businesses, who they're looking at and what they're making their decisions. It really is all consumer focused. And while I understand it, where they make their money is in the businesses. I mean, that's really where they make their money. So, to me, I just don't understand why they don't, take into consideration the business side. I've never seen, and I know Facebook does this. They actually gather people that are using their platform, businesses that are using their platform, and ask questions and get their feedback in. And I'm not a big Facebook fan either, but at least it seems like they're trying to get that side of it into the conversation, which I think is smart. I don't think Google cares. And so this is, they've just made this thing out there, this platform. And, it's so popular right now, they don't have to. But I do predict eventually something's going to come around. It's going to give them a run for their money. I don't know what it is, but I think eventually something's gonna do it. And I'm still waiting. I may die first, but I'm gonna stick with my prediction. So, do either one of you guys have anything else you want to say? Are there any questions that's come up on the Google My Business side that we haven't answered, guys? If you've got a question, put it in. Be more than happy to see if we can answer it or find the answer to. Carter, Caroline, is there anything else that you guys can think of that you want to share?
Well, while we're waiting on questions from people who are watching, I just want to say, number one, just recognize you, Caroline, for your expertise. You're just really shining in that role and doing what you're doing. I really appreciate you coming and so concisely helping to understand, communicating what Google My Business is and how we can utilize it and how people can utilize it. But I also want to say that Caroline represents a team of experts on our staff, people just like her that are rock stars, each one in a particular area. Some of them in Facebook and social, some of them on the Facebook ads, some on the Google AdWords side, some on the website building side and video, and all of the things that we do as a marketing company. Each of these experts are highly trained and spend all of their time really focusing on these areas to be able to really make the needle move. And Caroline is absolutely a rock star when it comes to being able to explain all of this. But just know we've got 20 others, that work with us that are just like her, that are serious and dedicated and really want to bring their expertise to bear on the well-being of their clients. And it's really a pleasure to be able to work with people like you, Caroline, that care about our customers the way that you do. So I just wanted to say that.
You're welcome.
Yes, and I will say, all these guys are working behind the scenes, and we have to get better at interpreting and letting you guys know exactly what they're doing too. So that's another thing. Sometimes we fall short into communicating that and letting y'all know, our clients and even the people that aren't our clients, what's possible out there to work with a marketing company. And we've actually got a couple of questions. One comes from our own Tom Smodick. And of course, it's a tracking question, which Tom is all about. So Tom is our analytical guy here. He wants to know, is there any reliable way to track traffic or leads coming from Google My Business?
I'm really glad that he brought that up. So if you do like call tracking, the one thing you're going to want to do is use so you want to put your regular phone number in there, but you also want to put your tracking phone number in there, right? So in order to keep like consistency throughout citations, that's a whole nother, meeting that we could go into. But you're going to want to have both of those in there. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your tracking number in the primary number slot, and then there's going to be secondary number slots. And in the secondary number slot, you're going to put your regular phone number, your actual business phone number, the one that the tracking number is going to reroute to. So that's how you're going to want to handle the phone number tracking and call tracking. So for links and things like that, you're going to want to use UTM tracking, which it's a little complicated. There is like a little website that you can go to. I think if you just type in like UTM tracking into Google, you'll find it. But it gives you a little form to fill out. And you have to use things like, you have to put in the link first to the website, so the actual link that you want to use. And then you're going to put in the source and the medium and all of that. Again, it's kind of complicated, not really something that I can answer in the next like 2 minutes. But there are ways to fill that out and ways to, do it so that way when you are tracking those clicks and things like that, you'll see that come in. So you're going to want to do that for, your website link, your appointment link, any links that you put in your posts, you're going to want to put those in there as well. So yeah, great question.
And I'll just say, if you are a client of ours, that's already been done for you. We do that on everybody, and that the links report in the Google Analytics, and then we have the call tracking as well. So we've got all that information. So I think it's not Chuck. I actually think this is Linda, because she's the one that does posting, and she asked this posting question. Should you update photos on Google My Business? And if so, how often?
So the sneaky answer is it depends. I know you hear that all the time. Everyone loves that answer. But it really does depend. And the most important part is that you do it consistently. So you don't have to do it every day. And I also wouldn't recommend doing it only once every couple of months. So sometime in between there. But yeah, you just want to do it on a consistent basis. Whether you upload photos, like once every 2 weeks, once a month, something like that. Those can work. It just kind of depends on what works best for you. But you're going to want to put updated photos, new fresh photos in there on a regular basis. Like I said, maybe once every couple of weeks, once a month, something like that. There's really no like good answer, but that's what I would recommend, is just do it consistently. Don't just, photo dump one time and think you're good for like 6 months or a year. You want to do it on a more consistent basis. So that way Google is getting those signals that you're constantly updating, your listing. And that's the most important thing, is that you're putting in fresh information into your listing on a regular basis.
So I'm going to key off that, because the one thing I do know, whether it's website, SEO, Google My Business, it doesn't matter what it is, consistency is the key. This is the one thing that people miss more than anything else. Search engine optimization, because that's kind of my world. On search engine optimization, it's doing the same doggone thing over and over and over and over and over again in a very consistent methodology, so that Google sees that you're constantly working on something. So consistency, I think, anything online, I would say consistency. That's the same with social, the platforms that you use on social, it's just being consistent. Says a lot about that. Even in AdWords, we're finding out that consistency, in ads is another thing. It's we've done some comparisons. Christian's done a great job on doing some comparison and looking into some things on that, and he's finding out consistency has a lot to do with how they perform as well. So consistency around the board, I think, is just a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, guys, we're almost to an hour, which this is a little bit longer, but I think it's great content. So it's been fantastic. Guys, just want to let you know, if you have not received your playbook and you are a client of ours, you should have gotten it email as well as in the mail. If you have not gotten it, please let me know. We will try to correct that and get that to you. If you have any questions about it, you can get me, Taylor@sparkmarketer.com. Happy to go over those with you. And here's the big ask. If you've got anybody in your area, a HVAC, plumber, electrician, roofer, anybody that you do business with that you think could use a playbook, we would love to be able to do one for them. I've been doing a lot of them, and just let them know. Sparkmarketer.com/playbook. Give them that link, and we'll take care of them for you. And the last thing I'm going to say is this: next week we have decided we're going to tease you a little bit now with next week's title. Customers, you get what you pay for, right? Everybody knows that. You get what you pay for. We are going to talk about pay-to-play marketing. That's all the local search ads, the AdWords, the Facebook ads, the search engine optimization. We are going to dig deep into pay for play. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we have enjoyed this. And we thank you, Caroline, from Linda Roydhouse. There you
Oh, thank you.
we really appreciate you guys showing up. Linda, Jillian, Kathy Ray, gosh, who else? Lee, I'm looking down the Christian. Thank you, Tom, for being around. It's great. Thank you, guys. And we hope you're getting a lot out of these, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.